Texas Longhorns media just gave us exactly what we've been wanting to see.
Yards shy of the record. Williams breaks a hole. Williams had a record book. Ricky Williams runs to the Hall of Fame. Touchback. Ricky Williams, touchdown.
Young from the shotgun. Back to throw. Vince looks. Under pressure. He'll tuck it in run. Vince to the 5. Young. Touchdown, Texas. Touchdown, Vince Young. He's done it again.
Longhorn Nation, we're back.
Welcome into the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. I'm your host, Matt Galatson of Texas Longhorns on SI. Joining me today, as always, is my co-host, Zach Dimmitt. And Zach, we have gotten a lot of hype surrounding this Cam Coleman situation, and Texas Longhorns media just threw some gasoline on it. One of the things that we've been wanting to see this entire spring, we saw a glimpse of in early media releases on social media from the school was, Cam Coleman making some Cam Coleman type plays, right? And it appears that we just got the best one of them all, and I'm going to play that for you here today. We're also going to talk about Ryan Wingo and what he has to say about the addition of Cam Coleman. We're going to get into some interesting running back news, some Ryan Nibblett news, and a little bit of offensive line stuff as well that I thought was particularly interesting this week. But first, Zach, let's start off. Cam Coleman, what's the one thing that we have been wanting to see in spring football? We've wanted to see him jump up in the air and just absolutely moss a defensive back. And thanks to Texas Longhorns media, we got just that. I'm going to play it here for the YouTube crowd. I highly encourage you to go watch it on YouTube if you can. But this is vintage Cam Coleman type stuff here, Zach. Poor Samari Matthews. He made a great play on the ball, by the way. Did Matthews. That's really good contested stuff. That's really good defense. But Cam Coleman is just Cam Coleman, and he's going to be making plays like this one here all season long.
Yeah, it's almost like the biggest takeaway from this was how good of coverage it was from Smoke Matthews, because we know what Cam Coleman can do, but a lot of people are like, "What is Samari Matthews supposed to be doing different?" I mean, that was great coverage. You're just going up against a future NFL receiver who's arguably the best contested catch guy in the country, and so yeah, lots to feel great about in that one clip, because you hear the cliche all the time, iron sharpens iron. And if Samari Matthews is having to go up against Cam Coleman in practice, just imagine what that'll do for him moving forward when it comes to, his growth this upcoming season. But yeah, with Cam Coleman, we already knew what he can do when it comes to contested catches. We saw him make some incredible catches last season at Auburn, one-handed, contested double teams. I mean, this guy, he's got really strong hands. And then that first spring practice that they let the media see in person, a lot of the receivers were having a little bit of trouble here and there. It was a little bit wet and misty on the practice field. And some of these receivers were dropping some balls, but Cam Coleman, he was very sure-handed, never had to double catch anything, never used his chest. It was just routes on air, but it was still, you could still see the talent and how strong his hands are. So yeah, contested catches aren't going to be your best offense. I think Steve Sarkisian and Arch Manning know that, but if you have, nothing else to go to, and you're just going to make it simple and just tell Cam Coleman to go make a play, it's very obvious he can go do that. You don't want to rely on that all season long, because I think he's obviously much more than that as a receiver. But when you can just say, hey, go get the ball, we're going to throw it up to you, and Arch Manning's going to put it in a spot where no one else can get it, the defense is going to have no answers for that. And so it's going to be really exciting to see that this season.
Yeah, you want to talk about an eye-popping stat, by the way, Zach? This is one that Rod Babers, former standout Texas Longhorns defensive back, posted on X, and I thought it was incredibly interesting. I did not know this stat. According to Pro Football Focus, Cam Coleman had an 81.8% catch rate on deep passes of 20-plus more yards that were contested last season, which was the highest catch rate of any player with double-digit deep contested targets in a season since PFF started keeping track of it in 2017. So he is basically the best there has ever been in the PFF era in the last decade at deep contested catches. That is something that Arch Manning is going to be able to take advantage of. I agree with you, Zach. I don't think that is the best recipe for offense necessarily. You would like to have wide open downfield targets, but if you're going to throw it up to anybody in the country, it is Cam Coleman, and I love to hear that. Also, Ryan Wingo had something really interesting to say about Cam Coleman as well. He was asked this week during the player media availability, which was yesterday, about how Cam Coleman is going to affect him and affect this offense overall. And he said, Coleman is just another great playmaker on the other side, so there's going to be more one-on-one matchups. It's going to be a good season, and we're going to be able to showcase our abilities. Short quote there, but it really does lend to the idea that we've been talking about a lot this offseason of with Cam Coleman on one side, probably carrying a safety a lot of the time. It's going to leave a lot of one-on-one opportunities open for guys like Emmett Mosley and Ryan Wingo to really cook, because last year Wingo was rarely in single coverage, and when he was, he did have a few drops here and there, but he was overwhelmingly the most targeted wide receiver in the Texas offense. The opposing offense knew they were trying to go to him in the passing game, and I think that it affected the Longhorns offense in that way. And now with Cam Coleman involved, if the defense decides to, carry a safety over with him and kind of bracket him in coverage, then everybody else is going to be wide open. So it's going to be a kind of pick your poison thing at wide receiver for Texas, and that's something that they haven't really had since the Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Jordan Whittington, and even then, I don't think it was as much of a dynamic tandem with Worthy and AD Mitchell as it will be with Cam Coleman and Ryan Wingo. But that's another conversation for another day. Just really interesting to think about there from the perspective of Ryan Williams, Zach.
Yeah, Ryan Wingo. There was a few moments last season. Yeah, you're Ryan. I got you there. There was a few moments last season where there were some drops, but overall, it was a great season for Ryan Wingo. I think he really thrives in that run after catch role. A few deep passes here and there, but that's not really his strength. I just think that you got to lean on Cam Coleman in that regard. And so while Cam Coleman's going deep, Ryan Wingo maybe is your second or third option going across the middle. And once he turns on the jets, he's really hard to tackle. He's really hard to, catch up to, because he's got really long legs. He's a big guy. And then, I feel like we don't talk about Emmett Mosley enough sometimes, but I was so impressed with him last season. He's got really strong hands as well. He kind of gives you a little bit of everything. He's a great blocker. It's really exciting to see what Wingo and Mosley can do one-on-one, because who knows what the defense will do with Cam Coleman. Will they put their second best cornerback on him and then double with him with the safety and then put the best cornerback on Wingo or Mosley? We'll have to wait and see. Every team is going to be different with their approach, but it's going to be really exciting to see what Wingo and Mosley can do, because there's going to be games where Coleman is just – the defense is going to have him as their number one priority, and so he may have a quiet game. So Wingo and Mosley will need to step up. And I think that, seeing what they can do next season, a little bit of pressure off their shoulders a little bit, because Sark even said after that Ohio State game last year that we're putting a lot of pressure on Ryan Wingo, and we need to take some of that pressure off of him. And I think they kind of did that as the season went on, because Mosley obviously was injured at the start of non-conference play. So it's really exciting to see what these guys can do. I know Wingo and Mosley have been dealing with injuries, but it's just spring ball. They'll be healthy in time for fall camp and everything. So once those guys really start building some chemistry together on the field with Arch Manning, all three of them together, all three of those receivers, I think the offense is going to do some great things.
Yeah, it absolutely is going to do some great things. And another reason it's going to do great things, Zach, is because of the new running back tandem. Ralique Brown and Hollywood Smothers are both really impressing people, to say the least, so far in spring football. And that's not much of a surprise. Both of these guys came in very, very, very highly touted. They're both excellent fits for what Texas is going to want to do running the football with the outside zone run scheme, their ability to break big plays, make people miss. and those kinds of things. And, a lot of people were wondering who's going to start, who is going to get the majority of the carries. Is this going to be a committee approach with the two of them and then maybe a third back like Derek Cooper or Michael Terry or James Simon or whatever? We got our first little glimpse into what that is starting to look like so far. And it's not really too much of a surprise, Zach. So far right now, according to reports from Anwar Richardson of Orange Bloods, both Brown and Smothers will share opportunities in the Longhorns backfield. It seems like almost 50-50. Each running back is taking turns as the lead, and they are essentially 1A and 1B, the source told Anwar Richardson. This is going to be a very dangerous thing for opposing defenses. Like most of the time, and there are a few exceptions to this around college football, obviously. You could look at Georgia, for example, who had a plethora of backs last year and were really good at running the football, and they just kind of ran it down your throat consistently because they were always fresh back there. That's the kind of thing Texas is going to be able to do with these two running backs. And I assume that, it's probably not going to be a 50-50 split in terms of we got to make sure we get Hollywood, 12 to 13 carries and Ralique 12 to 13 carries. I think it's going to be, both of these guys are going to be fully a part of the game plan. And then, whichever one is hotter in that game, we're going to ride the hotter hand, and they're probably going to get the majority of the carries in that game while the other one kind of supplements them, when they get their opportunities. But I kind of love to hear it, Zach. I love to hear that both of these guys are performing really well, because that's what you really need to hear when you bring in transfer running backs. I mean, look at Oklahoma. They brought in Jaden Knott last offseason, and that ended up being a big fat nothing. So it seems, at least so far through the first couple of weeks of spring, that Texas has a lot to be excited about these two running backs.
Yeah, and this is kind of what we expected, that it was going to be a 1A, 1B between these two guys. I honestly have no idea who will finish with more carries at the end of the season. It might come down to who misses a game or two due to injury. That might be what it comes down to, because I think both these guys, Hollywood Smothers, Ralique Brown, are gonna be, right there next to each other, taking turns, because they're both talented. Ryan Nibblett, who we'll get to in a second, he said yesterday when speaking to the media that Ralique Brown's a little bit smaller, but he just is so squirmy and gets in and out of those holes super quickly and has lots of speed, lots of burst to his game. And so, I think there's gonna be some home run hitting ability there, but same with Hollywood Smothers. I mean, we've talked about it on this show a little bit, but he's going to be very, very productive between the tackles as well. But both of them have that speed ability. I think maybe Ralique Brown has the edge there, but they both kind of give you a little bit of everything. Both have pass catching ability as well. So it's hard to just really lean on one guy or the other. It just, like you said, depends on who's going to be hot. So definitely expect an upgrade from last year's running back room. I loved Quintravion Wisner. A lot of that was also due to the O-line not being at its best for, at multiple points of the season. They got better as the season went on, but I don't think that Quintravion Wisner was going to have a role on this team when you factor in Ralique Brown and Hollywood Smothers, obviously.
Yeah,
so
definitely not.
I think, and so it's just, he did great things, but these guys are definitely an upgrade. And I'm really excited to see, especially when you added Derek Cooper into the mix. I mean, your number 3 running back is very, very important when you factor in injuries. But I think in non-conference play, when some of these games turn into kind of a blowout, Derek Cooper, he could have one of those, 100-yard games, because he may break off like a 70-yarder late in the fourth quarter when the game's already out of hand, and he may have some early season touchdowns, and then you never know, late in the season, put him in a goal line situation, he'll have a touchdown as well there. So you never know what can happen. But overall, the running back room, I'm really excited to see what can happen there with all these new faces. But yeah, Sark even said, when we was talking about the quarterback battle for the backup role, at least, he was asked, can Diabell potentially be a backup quarterback? And Sark was like, listen, every position is undecided, essentially. Obviously Arch Manning's your starting quarterback and so on and so forth. But all these, most of these positions, at least for the backup roles, are undecided. We're only in spring. And so Will there eventually be a starting running back that could be named in fall camp? Of course, someone has to start the first game of the season against Texas State. Someone has to be officially listed as a starter. So we'll see if Hollywood Smothers or Ralique Brown can kind of break away from each other in that regard. But I truly think this is going to be one of those things where while other backup positions and other positions figure out who's going to be starting, Ralique Brown and Hollywood Smothers are going to be neck and neck all the way to the season opener. I truly don't know who's going to be the starting running back against Texas State. We'll have to just wait and see, but that's quite a while from now.
And there's a couple interesting notes about Derek Cooper as well. I'm glad you brought him up. Number one, Sark said this week when speaking to the media that Derek Cooper is farther along than, I'm paraphrasing here, but Derek Cooper is farther along than any other true freshman running back that they've really had since he's been in Austin. And that includes CJ Baxter, who won the starting job, by the way, in 2023 before the season started. It just ended up getting injured, which led to the emergence of Jonathan Brooks. But that is particularly exciting, if I do say so myself, because I'm really high on this kid. I mean, we showed a picture of him in spring practice a couple weeks ago on this show. He looks like an absolute dude. Like he is a big guy. He's going to be really difficult to handle. He's going to be your power back if you need one, I believe, just based on what I've seen so far in the spring. But here's another interesting thing. Apparently, and I hadn't seen this, so I just sent it over to Ryan. Apparently, Texas sees sees Derek Cooper in a similar vein to a guy named Bijan Robinson. According to Corey Cooper, Derek Cooper's dad, in an interview with ESPN, he says they talked about his skill set and compared his build to Bijan Robinson. They don't have a running back like Derek right now. They feel like they can do a lot with him. He wants to run. He wants to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield. He wants to line up at receiver. He wants to show he has the skills to play at the next level, and they're going to let him do that at Texas. Okay, like if we're gonna sit here and say that this guy could have a Bijan Robinson type role, I mean, I know that that's extremely lofty, if I do say so myself, because Bijan is one of the best that's ever done it at Texas, period. But interesting stuff to think about with Derek Cooper. It seems like he's going to be a much bigger part of the offense than people give him credit for in 2026. Because I mean, I remember sitting here talking with you about it, Zach, and on my old show on Open Gym, like how much can a true freshman running back really impact a team? It's very rare. It feels like Sark thinks that Derek Cooper could have a legitimate role on this team and be an impactful player in the offense, which would be really exciting. All right, Zach, let's take a break. We're at our midway point here. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about Ryan Nibblett, who appears to have a new role on this offense. And then we're going to talk some offensive line as well. So stick with us after this break and we'll be right back.
This episode of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast is brought to you by Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi. Custom Built Trailers is the largest in-stock trailer dealer in Mississippi with a variety of options to choose from flatbed goosenecks to bumper pull equipment trailers and car haulers to enclosed trailers and basic utility trailers. We do a little bit of everything. And if we don't have exactly what you're looking for in stock, we can typically have your custom-built trailer built in 7 to 10 working days. 0% financing options are available, and we also deliver out of state. So give Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi a call at 601-722-9581 today and let us take care of your hauling needs. Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi. If we don't have it, we'll be glad to build it.
Welcome back to the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. I'm your host, Matt Galatson, joined as always by my co-host, Zach Demmett. Zach, we teased this before the break, but it appears that Ryan Nibblett, the arguably the best return man in college football last season, I mean, I don't think it's very arguable. I think he was, appears to have a new role on this team next year, at least according to him, during the player media availability this week. He said, I think I'm going to have a pretty big role on this team, the same as last year, doing what I do as a punt returner, and also more of a third down running back, just being there when the guys get tired, just be there, show up, make plays when they're down. So I think I'm going to have a really good role this year. I feel like I'm very smart. I feel like I'm very fast at just being able to slow the game down, knowing my reads, knowing, who I got in pass pro, understanding everything that's going on around me. So like, it doesn't sound like there's a whole lot there, But if you kind of read between the lines of what he was trying to say and the way that he said it, and I know that that's, I'm getting kind of into the semantics here a little bit, Zach, but it feels like they're going to try to work him into this offense a lot more this year, based on what I understand about this quote. Because, last year it was like, okay, when Ryan Niblett's in the game, he's probably getting the ball in a jet sweep, or he's returning a punt, or he's returning a kick. This year, it feels like I know he's been working out with the running backs a lot during spring practice, but it feels like he's going to be more involved in down to down on this offense wherever he lines up on the field. I think they're going to try to get the ball into his hands. I think they're going to try to use him as a decoy. Obviously, they're still going to use him in the return game a ton. But it's nice to hear that he's getting a little bit more involved in this stuff because, he's electric when he has the ball in his hands.
For sure. It's kind of like with Jermaine Bishop a little bit. We haven't seen him obviously yet, but you just want to get the ball in his hands next season, despite how deep the receiving room is. And I think they will. And with Ryan Nibblett, he's already proven what he can do when he has the ball in his hands. So I think you got to find a way to do that. Listen, he's not going to come out there and have, 25 carries for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. But I think if you can use him as sort of a gadget piece, he starts out in the backfield, you motion him out to wide receiver, things like that. And, or maybe you even run some 2 running back sets. I mean, it's not really something that Texas has done a whole lot of, but you never know. They may throw a few things at the defense that you may not see coming. I don't know. Throw him in a wildcat as well. I mean, he's just yeah, he's not like super big or anything, but the speed is there. Teams are going to have to pay attention to him, knowing what he is as a punt returner. And so it's on offense, but okay, he has that ability, and you have to kind of game plan for that. And so you may have Sark may have some packages for him, but at the end of the day, it's all about Hollywood Smothers, Ralique Brown, and Derek Cooper as well. I mean, I love Ryan Nibblett, but Derek Cooper, I feel like he's just at a different level talent-wise and at the running back position.
For sure.
Where Ryan Nibblett kind of gives you a little bit of everything. Obviously he's one of the best punt returners in the country. So his role there won't change. The coaching staff would be silly to not have him still be the primary punt returner. I know a few weeks ago when they started practice, it was Ralique Brown and Dalen McCutcheon taking punt returns. But let's be honest, Ryan Nibblett is your top punt returner. There's no secret about that. I think they're just trying to figure out who can return punts if he has to miss any time for some reason. So, I'm excited to see what his role could be, because Ryan Nibblett, he didn't have to stick with Texas. He didn't have to continue to jump between receiver, running back, and he was even at defensive back. I mean, he could have transferred a long time ago and gone to a team that gives him a solid role, but he really has stuck with the Longhorns, and he deserves a lot of credit for that, because a lot of guys wouldn't do that. And I think because of that, he's seen his hard work pay off and his dedication pay off, because he's going to have, I think, a solid role in this team. The numbers for him on offense aren't going to blow anyone out of the water or anything like that, but I think you'll see him make a lot of impact plays. And of course, when you add in that special teams impact, he's going to be one of the more underrated guys in this team next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Let's get into some offensive line stuff real quick, Zach, before we get out of here, because Trevor Gooseby spoke to the media. Brandon Baker spoke to the media. Both of those guys gave a lot of interesting info. And we'll start with Trevor Gooseby. He talked about why he wanted to come back to Texas. I mean, a lot of people had him in first round conversation as an offensive tackle. He was going to be in the conversation for a top 5 position grade in the NFL draft, and he elected to come back. And he listed three reasons why, and I thought this first one is particularly interesting. First and foremost, I just had some unfinished business. You love to hear that. He said, just being able to go out and protect myself and project myself even further up draft boards. I also want to win a national championship. With the guys, I feel like we have a team that can do that this year, as well as win the Joe Moore Award. And, I'm headed for the Outland Trophy and the Lombardi Trophy, just like Kelvin Banks did. So he wants to be Kelvin Banks. He wants to be a top 10 draft pick. He wants to win a national championship. He's got unfinished business. Sounds like he's got a lot of goals ahead of him. And a lot of times when a guy comes back, after foregoing the NFL draft to return to college for a year. There are a lot of different things that can be involved in that, but it sounds like this guy is just all about, getting his goals accomplished, which I just love to hear that.
Yeah, it's about leaving a legacy at Texas, and I think Trevor Gooseby wants to do that. Let's be honest, he's not going to go out and just admit it, but NIL money certainly probably played a little bit of a role for him staying, of course. But
NIL, what are you talking about?
Yeah. I mean, come on. But, there's obviously bigger things than money. Money is a factor, but if he has a chance to boost his draft stock, he'll make even more money than he would have if he entered the draft this year. So, by this time next season or, next off season, he could be a potential top 15, top 10 guy. And he just made himself more money by staying another year at Texas. And so while adding on a potential Outland Trophy, Texas could win the Joe Moore Award with him at the forefront. We'll see about that, though. We're going to see how this offensive line, meshes together. But and then, of course, competing for national championship, those things are bigger than just a few extra bucks. I know it's not a few bucks, you know what I'm saying, but it's important to establish your legacy, and I think he's dedicated to being a Longhorn, and so you love to hear those things from Trevor Gooseby. He's obviously one of the most important guys on the team next year. And taking after a guy like Kelvin Banks isn't exactly the worst thing in the world, because Kelvin Banks was an elite player at Texas. He had a great rookie season with the New Orleans Saints, and so if Trevor Gooseby can follow in his footsteps even a little bit, he's going to be headed for really, really great things. So yeah, excited to see what he can do this fall.
Yeah, good player to kind of idolize and drive and strive to be. You know what I mean? Like arguably the best left tackle that's ever done it in the history of the University of Texas, and Kelvin Banks. I'd want to be that guy too. So I don't blame him at all. And then little update from Brandon Baker. He opened up a little bit about his transition to guard within this offense. I mean, a lot of times, Zach, it's going to be real hard to talk a former really high 4-star, 5-star type talent into moving from his position at tackle into the interior just for the betterment of the team. Like a lot of time, it can be really hard to do that. It doesn't really sound like that's been an issue for Baker so far. In fact, it seems like he's really enjoying the switch to guard. He told the media it's just been a great adjustment so far. There's a lot of terminology, different sound bites that takes a little bit of time to get used to, but for the most part, everything's been smooth. And you love to hear that. It's, and there's more to it as well, but that I'll get into here in a minute, Zach. But you love to hear that the transition is smooth. You love to hear that he is excelling so far at that spot. I know Trevor Gooseby talked about him as well, and said that, like, hey, this guy is, this is a natural fit for him. Like he's got the athletic ability, but he's also got the guard build that you need to play the position. So he's really a great fit. He also played some guard at high school, which has made this transition for him easier as well. So it's really nice to hear that this idea that a lot of Texas fans, when you originally proposed this idea of Brandon Baker moving inside to guard, a lot of Texas fans were like, oh, that must mean our offensive line is going to suck next year if we have to do something like that. But no, it really seems like this is going to be where Brandon Baker is better, at least in the short term, for both him and for this program.
Yeah, I don't know if we had ever really spoken to Brandon Baker last season, and I was impressed by just the way, just how mature he sounded. He really sounds like a guy that is all about this program, is all about this team. I really like the way that he presented himself, because some guys, when it comes to the media, they may not want to talk to the media. Who are these reporters? But he was like, really, really loving, talking about this year's team. And I appreciate that from him. And so I think he's a guy that you're just going to see grow as the season goes on, and then even beyond that. So there's this offensive line. It's crazy, how worried many Texas fans were heading into the offseason. And just the changes that they made Brandon Baker being kind of at the center of that with his position change. And so I think there's a lot of reasons to feel confident. And, of course, Melvin Siani, Lawrence Seymour, those guys, interested to see what they can do. But I think Brandon Baker might be one of the more interesting guys to see how he produces, just because of kind of what he showed a little bit last season and how he'll make that position change. So interesting guy to watch for sure.
Yeah. And when you think about it, Zach, if he can be equal to or better than DJ Campbell was this past year for the Longhorns, which might be tough because, DJ was pretty good last year. He struggled with his consistency a little bit, but he was arguably the Longhorns' best offensive lineman, not named Trevor Gooseby all season long. If he can be equal to or greater than Trevor Gooseby or than DJ Campbell, I mean, Trevor Gooseby in 2026 is going to be better than Trevor Gooseby in 2025. And Lawrence Seymour is going to be better than Cole Hudson. 2026 Connor Robertson is going to be better than 2025 Connor Robertson. I mean, Melvin Siani is going to be a better right tackle next year than Brandon Baker was last year. So at the very least, this offensive line is improved across the board, regardless of whether or not, the Baker and DJ Campbell conversation happens. If it does, then that's incredibly interesting. And this offensive line is going to be in a much better spot, which will in turn make the offense a lot more efficient and put them in a much better spot as well. All right, Zach, let's close it out there. We will be back on Monday. We will talk more spring football. We will talk a little bit more Texas basketball because the transfer portal opens here very, very soon. I believe it's on Sunday. Am I right about that, Zach?
Tuesday.
Oh, it's on Tuesday? Okay, so the transfer portal opens up on – Yeah, okay. The transfer portal opens up on Tuesday. And then we also see what happens with the Lady Longhorns because, they got a big one coming up against South Carolina as well. So stick with us to hear more about all that stuff on Monday. But thank you so much for tuning into this edition of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and rate our podcast and comment down below on YouTube to let us know your thoughts. Really helps us out in the algorithm and helps us grow and pay the bills. So we really appreciate that. But most importantly, be sure to tell somebody you love them. We'll catch you in the next one.